and good story. It's a fun story. The music was also really good. And there's like a lot of warmth in those movies. Like even I want to say even like Jumanji, for example, the very first one, not the remake. Just like the values, how the story is made, how the music is, kind of music is used, the dialogue, character development, like all that stuff, I think had some warmth to it. Whereas now, I don't know. I think movies are just too ostentatious. And like lack of like human sensibility, in a sense. Like everything is I'm not gonna say everything, it's a really encompassing way to say it, but for most, I want to say have this like kind of ruthless tone, or like self-serving tone. I did start watching the Game of Thrones continuation, House of the Dragon, and I really like it. I mean, the story and the acting and the cinematography there is great as well. Maybe that's what I'm really getting the idea of, like ruthless tone, because there is a lot of ruthless tone in those series. I mean, that time era was pretty ruthless. I mean, people were looking at murder as a form of entertainment, which is insane. So gross. Even during the Roman Empire, right? Like Colosseum, the whole idea of like just watching people trying to like kill each other. I might have read that a lot of it was acting. It was just like performance. It's like watching WWE or something. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was real. But like jousting, for example, that's another one where some serious injuries would come from it. people would compete for the throne. Or for the hand of a princess or something like that. Or another movie that I could remember that's old school and had really cool story, character development, and that sort of thing was Total Recall. The original, not the remake. That was done in like 2012 or something like that. I didn't like that one. It wasn't terrible. I won't say it was awful. I would say it's worth watching once. But the original Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I could rewatch that multiple times. I want to say maybe Stranger Things might have some of those like heartwarming storylines, but I still think that in some ways they shy away from it with like, you know, jokes and quirk scenes or whatever else. And I think like they tap into like pity more, in a sense, like if you pity L, you know, or you pity her other friend and stuff. But I think stories could be heartwarming or induce kindness without having to invoke pity. You know, I think that that's also a certain skill as I think as a director, as a writer that you could do. Like, I don't think that consideration for other people has to play in pity. And I guess it could really depend on the movie as well. But for example, I would say in Total Recall, he was going through struggles. Like, he was going through things that just kind of made him question reality or question who's really a friend and who's a foe. You know, there were all these scenes, but it didn't invoke pity. It was just, you remained hopeful knowing that he's gonna, you know, persevere through that. And of course, he had help there. It's just how the stories are told. I think that there is, you know, it invokes certain kind of emotions in the viewers. And I don't know, I think back then, it did tend to invoke more perseverance and strength in, like, let's say the protagonist. Now, there's an interesting idea that I've been thinking about recently, and that is the responsibility of an artist, right? Let's say like musicians, and what kind of songs end up becoming viral, and what people end up listening to, and how that affects them, their mood and their attitude and all that stuff. Like, I feel like there's like a fine line there, because on one hand, as an artist, you should be able to express yourself without the burden of thinking like, oh, well, what if this person does this, and what if this person does that, and this affects this person that way, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, it's like this thing that happens when, like, let's say somebody is like just thinking about, let's say, not caring about anything or anyone, and just doing drugs and so on and so forth, and it becomes a smash hit, and people start emulating this person, wanting to be like them, living the life that they're talking about, trying to achieve that as a goal, or trying to like convey this message that they're just like them because that person is so successful and has this, that, and the other, that if they emulate that, then people will perceive them to be the same way. And that's an example of one person, but imagine how many people are out there doing and thinking the same exact thing. So how much responsibility should an artist feel for the kind of content that they're putting out, right? Like, it's a really interesting topic, and I'm not really sure I quite have an answer to it. Like, I think for me, the answer is really education. That it really shouldn't be up to the artist to actually teach people all these things, how to act, how to be themselves, how to search for their own interests, for their own goals, and perceive the reality in a certain way. I think that has a lot to do with it. Also, political affairs, right? I mean, if people, if the entire culture isn't based on, let's say, capitalistic values, and just like, don't care about anything, just make your money and exploit people to get it. Like, if that isn't the mantra, that isn't what is constantly being shoved into people's faces, in all sorts of things. Like, for instance, shows, certain shows that are made, and people are like, oh, that's a cool personality, I'm going to be like that. But the show, it's like this idea of, life imitates art, art imitates life kind of thing. Where the show's portraying some things that actually happen in life, and they show it to people, and more as a way of just saying, like, look how insane certain scenarios are. And rather than people being like, yeah, that's pretty crazy, they're just like, oh, that's cool, like, that's actually, this person's getting ahead by doing really terrible things, so maybe I should start doing that. So they're, instead of perceiving it as like a problem, they look at it as like an opportunity to emulate. So it's this really weird dichotomy. And there's also like, companies that base it off of that. Like, oh, what do people want to see, right? That's their whole selling point is that. Like, oh, is this popular? We're going to make money off of that. So we're going to push that out onto people and make more money off of it. Oh, is ruthlessness the thing now? Like, let's do more shows about that, and make it real flashy, make it real sexy or whatever else, and then more people watch it and they want to emulate that. So it really depends, and again, it's like that question of how much responsibility should people like that feel for the trajectory of like social interaction. But I think, again, it goes back back to the whole education thing. So if like education systems teach people good values, how to interact with one another, what are some things that end up happening when people make these certain kind of decisions, et cetera, how to, like, what are the repercussions of it, and the ripple effects of the way that we choose to deal with problems, the way that we choose to interact with one another, whether it's a family member, a friend, a significant other, that sort of thing. Like, if more and more people are put in or are pushed to question things in that line, a better conscience would be developed, so less people would be willing to actually, let's say, listen to that type of music, or just really follow it along, or be like, yeah, I want to emulate that. They'll be like, okay, it's cool. Maybe they'll let them express themselves that way if that's what they're feeling. But I'm not going to go and do that. Like, I don't think it's cool or it's fun or whatever else. Like, maybe it's a cool beat or something and I like the beat, and that's kind of where it ends. Rather than being like, I want to be like that. I want to be this person, And I think it's important to do it at a young age because, as you know, like, what is commonly perceived is that young kids are impressionable. They're in that stage of trying to find themselves, trying to also figure out and navigate themselves through all sorts of scenarios of, like, adults and other things, challenging scenarios, dealing with their emotions and how they feel about things, all that stuff. Pretty sensitive area, so I think if schools would have better programs for such things to help them a little bit more and help navigate them through those kind of things, then better choices would be made. People will be less willing to emulate and more willing to, like, think about things deeper, make better decisions. So what do you guys think? You as viewers, what is your take on how much responsibility art and artists should have? I still personally believe that art should be a form of expression. That doesn't necessarily have to always tie into their responsibility on everything around them, because then it just really stifles creativity. You're just like, anything I do is going to end up having a ripple effect that really is more dependent on the person's critical thinking ability. There's going to be no room for expression because everything is going to be like, oh, well, if you do that, then everybody else is going to, Of course, there's boundaries to it. You're not going to show incredibly ridiculous things. And be like, yeah, that's fine, that's me. Like Armie Hammer or whatever else, like those ridiculous celebrities. Yeah, there's boundaries. There are certain limits to where it's no longer a form of expression. It's just like sociopathy, or like it turns into like psychopathic kind of behavior where you're just so involved in yourself that you have like absolutely no regard for anybody or anything. And I think that art is supposed to really make people challenge themselves and their perspective, rather than just being like a stage for talking about what you want to do. Like, I want to drive cars all day and spend money or whatever else. Like, it's like a form of therapy almost, where they're just telling everybody all this stuff. Which, again, I feel like, sure, that has its place. But I think really good art is more philosophical and makes the viewers kind of question things. It induces critical thinking in a way. Makes them think about themselves and their own points of views and that sort of thing. Like, I think that really distinguishes good art from just like therapeutic art in a sense. Like, sure, somebody could have a beautiful voice, but what is their message? What's the idea? What are they? What are they saying? Ooh, almost deleted all that. Thank God for Control Z. So this is like the other fun part. Is after everything is kind of in place, it's just a matter of like adding little details here and there. This is like the downtime of the drawing because the composition is there, you know, it's already put together, the characters are there, the backgrounds are pretty much there. I'm still going to be working on a lot of it, but for the most part, things are placed where I'd like them to be in the image. So yeah, it's just a matter of like defining them, adding little things here and there, beautifying them. So the sky's the limit. The biggest challenge was the composition and having to put everything together. And I'm really looking forward to the next stage after this because I think it's going to look even better. Like I'm going to start adding even more details or certain lines because things are going to be even more clear towards the end of this process. And I'm really excited to see where that's going to end up going. And going back to the never-ending story, though, I will say this, that I think it's more of like, you know, there's certain gems that come around because if you watched any of the sequels to the never-ending story, absolutely awful, really weird, awkward. I think one of them, Jack Black, is in there. Jack Black is playing like a bully in it. But you could tell like they were just milking it. They were just trying to milk how well the first one did. And like that, what I was talking about before, you know, like that whole like corporate approach where it's like, yeah, you know, if this is making money, then let's give people what they want. What else is there that we could add, you know? And they really cheesed it up and turned it into like watered down nothing. I ruined such a great story, and yeah, it just turned into like a marketing thing. So I'm gonna say like it was well underway in that era where things were starting to turn in that direction. Where it stopped being about the story and started being about like, what's a moneymaker? We don't want more of this. We want something that is cool and popular, that's really getting people's attention. But you could tell that like it's a work of art, or it's a piece of art, because that wasn't the focus when the movie was made. it really was very much about the art, about the story, about trying to captivate the audience in this genuine way. But yeah, the sequels to it, oh, awful. I challenge you guys to just last more than like half an hour, because I definitely couldn't. It was way too frustrating. I was like, this is, first of all, it's uncomfortable. The way the story is told, the way the character development was going, acting, all of it. And once again, time is running. I'm gonna clip it here, ladies and gents. This is a blast as always. I will be back tomorrow for the same. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's gonna be Drawing Basics. And at 9, oh, I was supposed to do the special outro. So let's do that. I'm actually up for it. So the special outro is gonna be you guessed it. Counterfeit. So those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, it's this really cool game that I enjoy very much because it shows all different type of art from all parts of history, and really you're just supposed to pick the difference in painting. So it's the same exact image and there's slight difference, and that really is, it's a cool way to train your eye to pay attention to detail, to recognize things, as well as like when you're, for instance, when you're drawing something from reference, you're darting your eye right back and forth to notice like, well, what's really the difference between my drawing and the original, the reference. And this kind of helps that process as well. You're constantly comparing, trying to spot exactly like where things are slightly different. But really, a lot of it also has to do with the fact that I just love looking at these paintings. There's something really beautiful about them. The fact that they are just like a piece of history. It's like traveling in time, kind of. You go back and you see like this is an actual person. This is actually drawn from that time period, and this is what people looked like. This is what their style was like. This is what they were doing. And it was a very unique period because there was no photography. Like in this case, for example, in this photo, I'm going to say this is like 1700s, maybe 1800s, early 1800s, late 1700s, if not earlier. Maybe it's like 1600s, probably more so 1600s, 1500s than it is 1800s. But yeah, in that time period, there was no camera. There was no way to capture somebody. So once you're gone, you're gone. And the people who really were able to do that were sculptors, painters. They played such an important role in history at that time. It wasn't for fun only. It wasn't just this beautiful skill. It was also a way of recording history. It was a way of recording a moment that there was no other way of doing it at the time. So it's a really unique thing, and you could tell in the expressions of the people how monumental that moment was, that they really did take it seriously. It was something really important. So I'm going to try to spot the difference between the time runs out, before the time runs out. Don't see it. This might be a really challenging one because I'm not noticing much of a difference here. This might be an uh-oh moment. I spent way more time talking about it than actually looking at it. Oh, I see it. It's the tool that he's holding in his hand. One is longer than the other. Nice. Oh, look at that. That's Van Gogh. Beautiful work by Van Gogh. His use of color. And here's a little interesting note. He was a drinker of absinthe. And what absinthe does, if you drink it way too much, I think, it changes your perception of color. It gives things kind of like a yellowish tint. So it could be that a lot of his paintings and the vibrance and the colors that he chose had to do with that, because of that influence. His yellows are more, they have like a warmer tint to it, or there is more yellow in his work because of that. Now let's see, what is the difference here? Painting. No. I thought it might have been the painting. Nothing with the pillows. Watch it be like a crack in the floor or something that's different. Oh, I see it. This is a really minute one. It's the foot of the chair. So the one on the left has one. The one towards the back, and the one on the right doesn't. It only has 3 feet. So it's little things like that you have to like spot the difference in. But it's really it's challenging, and again, you're looking at beautiful paintings. If you guys spot it before I do, call it out in chat. I'm more than open to it, and it would be great if you guys get involved in it. But yeah, I really like his work as well because it has texture. So he really lays it on thick with the paints, and it kind of makes the painting almost 3-dimensional. Like it brings it out to life more rather than it being like a flat image that resembles 3 dimension. It actually has three-dimension to it, despite it still being a flat image. So it's this cool combination of both that I really like about it. Congratulations, 10 points. Another Van Gogh. Another beautiful piece of work. As you could see, very lush yellow, like warm yellow tint to the floor. Pretty much a lot of the things that he's using. Even in the green, there's some yellow there as well, which I really like. So it's a really interesting style, because if you look at it, things are kind of warped. And I noticed the difference already. It's the clock. There are no handles, so the hands are off on one of them. But yeah, if you look at the clock, for example, it's warped, right? It doesn't have like a perfect shape to it. It's supposed to be circular, it's supposed to be round, but it's not. Same thing with certain furniture. Like if you look at the furniture in the back behind the pool table, it still kind of looks warped. The pool table itself, like the legs are kind of warped, but it still maintains realness to it. It feels like you are actually in the scene and you're looking at the pool table and the guy is looking back at you, waiting for you to make a move or start the game. But yeah, it's just this really cool, it's a cool effect that he has. Not hyper realistic, right? But retains realism to it. It retains this sense of reality when you're looking at it. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with his colors, like how he paints, and the colors that he chooses bring dimension to his work. Like the pool table has thick black lines defining it, but you don't really see this as like a comic book scene. It really still retains that realness to it, which I really dig. I feel like I'm in that room right now looking at this guy, and hopefully you guys feel the same thing. That's really what I really enjoy about it. So we're gonna click on that clock. Boom. All right, here we go. Here's another one. Weird times women wore these corsets, squeezed their insides. I don't even know. Like imagine every day you're wearing this thing that's constantly like restraining your way of, you can't even breathe properly, because you could see that the woman is slightly overweight, but her waist says otherwise. And that's probably hell to be in, like being in that position of just not being able to even breathe properly. Taking deep breaths, you can't, because it's all just being pressed in as much as possible. Yeah, awful. But this looks like pointillism to me. It looks like a bunch of little dots combined together to create something that actually has a lot of curvature to it and softness to it. It's not angular. It doesn't. The face even has softness to it as well. And I think I guess that's kind of like the theme, right? She's holding something that is also like to powder her face. There's softness to it. In the background as well, it's like clouds. Really well done as far as like, well, just in general, it also captures like a mood. I want to say it's like a mood of spring, with the flowers in the background as well. And what she's wearing, it's not like winter clothes. So it's like just this combination of all of that combined together. I did spot it. I spotted the difference, and it's the hair tie. She has a hair tie in one of them and no hair tie in the other. Now the question is, which one is real? I'm gonna say, because it could have been easily photoshopped in. They took a sample of her corset and just like blopped it onto the hair. I'm gonna take a look real close, see if maybe I could spot it. Yeah, I'm gonna say the one that's real is on the right, but I could be wrong. Bonus room. Oh crap. What was the ticket number? Oh no. Bummer. I forgot what the... I remember that actually. There was a ticket room for a bonus or whatever. I'm gonna try to get that again before I log off. So this one is pretty obvious. Sometimes they do that. It's weird. It's like way too in your face. And that's obviously his shirt. He has like bright green right in the middle. But yeah, another painting, 1400s, I'm gonna say. Maybe 1500s. And I think that's really what calls for it. And I also like the expression of his hand. You know, there is a certain delicacy to it. You know, the expression itself. It suggests aristocracy. It suggests refinement in some ways. But not like the fake kind, not the one where people just do it to appear that way. Like, it looks like he does come from a very well-off environment, an educated environment, or something about his face expression that says that as well. You know, it doesn't look haggard. He doesn't look bewildered or you know, deer in the headlights or anything like that. It just suggests an educated person who comes from comfortable life, in a sense. And that's kind of like, I guess, what the image is supposed to say. But it's also cool, like, once again, this is capturing somebody. This is actually a person from a period that no longer exists. So, piece of history there. And the painting is done well too, like just how the face is constructed, despite it not being hyper realistic. Like, I think it's still, there's still some things off. Like the hair looks, obviously it looks kind of constructed. You know, there isn't free flowing to it. Like, you know, that our hands have a little bit of roundness to them. It's hard to really pinpoint it, but the painting, the way it's painted, the way the colors are put onto it, it does give it 3-dimension. Everything gets 3-dimension. The colors are pretty good. So it's just this kind of mix between, like, it's like a stylistic version of realism. Exaggerated features in some ways. And yeah, the interesting thing is that he's not working off of a photograph. There are no photos at the time. So whatever he's drawing from the person posing. You know, or he did a sketch. You know, he probably did a sketch first and then just worked from his understanding of a light source. And probably from memory, you know, where the light source would be. According to that light source, this and this is where the light would hit on the arm, on the hand, on the face, etc. So the colors are great. They suggest skin tone. And that really brings out the painting. So I'm going to click on that. Congratulations. Whoopee. Moving on to this one. Beautiful scene. Very cool architecture. Another part that I really like about these paintings. Let's see if I can spot the difference before I blab on about it. Let's see. I see it. All the way in a corner, there is a window on the roof. So all the way on the left, on the right, sorry, all the way on the right painting, you see like a little attic window. Whereas on the left, there is no attic window, it's just a blue roof. But yeah, I think the architecture is very beautiful in this one. Compositionally, it's also really great how those two pointed roofs, along with the very back structure as well kind of resemble that throughout the image. So there's this kind of balance where all the way on the left there's an object that has a similar shape to the two on the right, and other ones in the middle as well. They're kind of jotting out in variation while having like these horizontal lines, the horizontal lines of the roof, the blue roof on the highest one and the lowest one, and then the boat itself also having adding to that horizontal pattern with a bit of curvature there. So it's like all these geometric shapes kind of combined together create really good composition, I think. And also like the windows, if you take a look, like there's a circle right in the middle, there's a square for the window on the right, there's a half circle on the bottom where the water is. So like all these shapes are kind of inner center, like the windows also, the two windows on the blue roof and the two windows below it, they're all kind of like centered in the middle of the painting and fill up this otherwise what would seem kind of flat. You know, they give it some dimension, they give it some depth. I want to say like you know, the black fill-ins suggest that there's depth to them, you know, that it goes further in, and it's all within the center. And also the entrance as well, like you could see right below the square window there's another like half circle, I want to say. So all that there suggests or is well done compositionally. Let's click on that. Boom. I see this one. It looks like there's shadow on the guy's eye on the left. The guy on the right wearing a red jacket. At the time it's a jacket. But yeah, his eye's covered on the left. I think it's really fascinating how they were able to, back then, like this is more close to like hyperrealism, I would say, how they were able to capture clothing so well. Like you look at his clothing here and it looks almost like a photograph, like it is really sticking out towards you, and has like this velvety kind of feel to it, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, they were amazing with capturing that back then. The amount of different colors within that color, you know, there's so many different whites and yellows and greens combined to give this illusion that it really is this three-dimensional part of the body. And again, capturing very cool time period. Like this is an actual person. It's not an actor. It's not a costume. It's not somebody who's posing for a painting. Like this is royalty of the time, I guess. And they're out in the wild. And I really like the face expression of the guy on the right, not the left. All of them have pretty interesting ones. The main focus guy in the center, I want to say has a cocky kind of face expression, you know, like, yes, I am royalty. You are drawing royalty right now. With his fancy sword that has a very designerly handle on it. Yeah, and also cool clothing, right? You look at that, like, when do you see people wearing pants like that and shoes like that, especially men of the time, or modern time? You wouldn't see anybody wearing that, but I like it. I think it looks cool. Such different style. Everybody wore this. This wasn't, a lot of people wore this, I'm gonna say. Even people who are considered lower class try to emulate this kind of style, which is really interesting. Alright, I'm gonna click on his face, moving on before the time runs out. I don't think I'm gonna get that one. Alright, another obvious one. on one end, and this is kind of like symbolical in a way, talking about class or whatnot. On one end, the baby's holding, I want to say a peach, and then the other one, it's like a rotten peach. It could be like interpreting, and this is actually what I was talking about before. Like when you're looking at a painting, it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what the illustrator intended or the painter intended it to be. It could be just something you interpret, take your mind and your imagination to a different reality, different interpretation. Like when I'm looking at this, I'm just seeing how, there's a dichotomy of kind of different kind of existences, right? There's like a baby that is born with privilege, or a baby that is born to, let's say, being taken care of, having food, and then the other one, it could kind of suggest the opposite, where he's being born into poor life, where even the food that he's eating is like kind of rotting. There's like a mop in the background, suggesting that it's a haggard kind of place. So it's just this kind of interesting interpretation. But I think it also signals, like, if you were to look at this and then you were to compare it to the previous image, right, and what that person looked like and what she looks like and what the background suggests, it definitely would suggest a different class, right? This is just like a recording of the time period to show, well, this is the life of somebody who doesn't have all the privilege and like the horses and servants and all this other stuff. This is somebody who's just born into average day life and is doing their best with the baby. But yeah, it's like all these things, and that's the beauty of art and painting. It's that it's supposed to make you think about all this stuff and make you interpret things in different ways, not necessarily exactly as they're supposed to be. Like there's some people I've met who are just so they get locked up when it comes to looking at art because they're like, I don't understand it, or I'm not seeing exactly as it is. And it's like that the point isn't only just to see it exactly as it is, it's to make you like wonder about life and interpret things in your own way and your own vision, or come up with your own ideas. So time is running out. Gonna click on that one. Another one that says the same thing. A musician, somebody who again isn't really born into wealth. Like you could see the background, right? It's like this castle and she's in the foreground, barefoot. Very well done. Like the feet look so realistic.